It's time for Global Insight. Kfood or Korean food has become a global brand, from bulgogi and rice bowls topped with multicolored veggies and proteins to Korean takes on cream-based dishes and snack foods like hot dogs. Kfood comprises not only Korean cuisine, but surprising combinations of vibrant flavors and chromatic ingredients in both traditional and fusion dishes. But the trend is going beyond the novelty factors for foodies. Kfood is now expanding as an everyday option for global city dwellers, as some of the most popular Korean foods are becoming mainstream in the world's largest cities. We take a look at this phenomenon with Kyle Yooshin Kim, resident of Toronto, working as a contract and procurement specialist at the Minto Group. We also have Christine Yacoub, MBA and marketing manager at Myungrang America, which launched Korean hot dogs in the US market. Very warm welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us. And well, my first question to you, Kyle. It's lovely to see you, and I hear that Toronto is one of the best places in North America to try diverse Korean foods. So where's really the go-to spot in the city?
Yes. Toronto is indeed a great city to try Korean cuisine, as well as many other eateries from all over the world. In fact, it's a city where more than half of the population is from outside of Canada, outside of the country by birthplace. And more than half of the Korean population in Canada resides in Greater Toronto area. So I would say definitely, along with Los Angeles, Toronto has the most sophisticated diversity when it comes to Korean food, and well, really when it comes to everything. More specifically in Toronto, I would say definitely North York area, a northern part of the city of Toronto, that has the most Korean population in Canada, is the go-to spot for everyone. It's also called the New Koreatown, and the old one, of course, is down in the downtown-y area, where there's also a plethora of Korean eateries you can choose from. So yeah, I would definitely recommend North York area.
And while California, of course, is rich in diversity too, bringing you into the conversation, Christine. Now, Myungrang hot dog, it's been spotlighted as one of California's hottest street food trends, and it's quite surprising, really, as some of the ingredients in your product are a little unorthodox for the American consumer, of course. So what was really the initial reaction to ingredients like black squid ink?
The concept of Korean hot dog is not so much different from Western culture's corn dog, like batter sausage with a stick. The differentiation point is the ingredient to draw the customer's attention. We introduce rice-containing batter, which gives chewy texture. We also introduce mozzarella cheese instead of sausage inside, and decorate it with diced potatoes or sweet potatoes. The good thing about this new trial is that the Americans are already familiar with these ingredients. All these ingredients created the new concept as a Korean hot dog. Myungrang hot dog added more to this new concept by adding different seasonings and the sauces, in addition to traditional ketchup or mustard. The black squid ink hot dog, yes, we know it could be a very unusual ingredient for many people, but the shape of the hot dog itself, which mimics the squid legs, and somewhat exotic, squid ink containing batter, is enough to draw the attention as a fun trial and experience. Because of this reason, this black squid ink hot dog is very popular among kids.
Right, it's definitely a statement menu, but it appeals widely. The taste of it really appeals to a big crowd, I suppose. And well, Kyle, you actually moved to Toronto 2 years ago, and well, during that time, have you noticed a growing appetite for Korean food there?
Oh, absolutely. I would say some Korean restaurants have more non-Korean patrons than the Korean ones. So if you walk into any Korean restaurant in North York, say, chances are you would easily see a lot of non-Koreans, even quite a lot of non-Asians, Caucasians enjoying the traditional Korean staples. For example, you would easily bump into a Caucasian devouring meat from his gamjatang pork bun soup with a can of Molson, which is a Canadian beer, or a mix of different ethnicities sitting at one table enjoying pork belly barbecue, samgyeopsal barbecue with 1,000 Korean side dishes that come with any entree for free. So I would say, as a Korean, it's definitely nice, but it's surreal as well. And I gather this is in part because dining out here is rather expensive. You would pay well over $20, 20 Canadian dollars, for a proper meal in a Korean restaurant, and other restaurants as well. And we Koreans, we can kind of whip it up at home, hence more non-Korean patrons. And what I personally define Korean food as the spicy, sweet, and tender, I really believe that really appeals to non-Koreans.
Well, it's quite surprising what you said, especially about the 감자탕 or potato and rib stew,
I know,
because
right?
it comes with, very strong flavors that might be quite exotic for non-Koreans. And well, it does seem, Carl, that in many cities, Korean food is becoming more appreciated in its authentic form than rather adapting to the localized sort of flavors. Would you agree with this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's this thing that Korean food becoming more appreciated in its authentic form. That's also the same thing I say to everyone here when it comes to Korean culture as well. So when current K-pop stars, BTS, Blackpink, you name it, and many more, when they rose to international fame for the first time, I really believe it's their authenticity, that is who they really are, that earned them the charm of originality, which then touched a lot of fans' hearts. So to elaborate, they didn't try really hard to become like Americans. They didn't try hard to fit in at the risk of losing themselves. All they did, they just try to communicate their true selves with the world, sometimes with poor English, sometimes with perfect, impeccable English. But what they did was really they presented themselves as they are, who they really are, and that Sooyoung, I believe, it's what did all the magic. And same with Korean food. It's always been there. It's always good. It's always been good. It's always had the potential to be liked as much, but it wasn't really much introduced before and wasn't really presented as is. And that it's that's really the charm of Korean food, appealing to locals here.
Right. And Christine, well, what made your company really jump into the US market? I mean, how did you build your brand?
Well, we knew that Myungrang hot dog has been very, very popular in Korea. And as we analyzed the US market, there were not many Korean food brands that American people could enjoy in daily life with an easy access. As we all know, there are numerous street foods in Korea, which Koreans can enjoy in their usual life. But here in the United States, we were very limited by having only pastries or donuts. This is how we started thinking of bringing this brand from Korea and try the market. We contacted Myungrang Shide in Korea and ended up having master franchise agreement to use their brand name. Our strategy was to start as a franchise business to fully adapt in US market. The customer's response was more than what we expected. This new fancy looking hot dogs attracted all generations and ethnicity. Consistent flavor and the customer service is the foundation of our brand. This gave us the opportunities to be mentioned in LA Times, AAA magazines, and local newspapers. Myungrang hot dog is slowly establishing its foundation to be an example of successful localization of Korean food brand. We also use social media as a marketing tool to be more approachable in public.
I see. And Christine, well, Myungrang hot dog, as you said, it's definitely come a very long way from the first store that opened in Busan, South Korea's southern coastal city years ago. And now it's expanding into the United Kingdom as well. So what is uniquely Korean about Myungrang hot dogs that makes it different from the usual hot dogs that come to mind and the slight adaptations we see of it?
Well, Myungrang hot dog is the original brand, which tried the different ingredients than the traditional sausage-based corn dog. Even though the Myungrang hot dog has been very popular in Korea for a while, it was not very easy for us to bring it to the United States because of the different and very strict franchise regulations. The process of franchise business registration is very different from states to states. This is a reason why we're slow and careful on expanding our business in many states because we want to be compliant and in different states. To accomplish more effective and attractive business, we're pursuing the differentiation and standardization strategy in our menu and operation. We all know what to expect when we walk into McDonald's, right? The same concept here. We want our customers to have the same expectation when they walk into the different stores and different locations. This requires a lot of effort, such as standardized training program for franchisees and building the trust between the corporate and franchisees. We want to use these process and operation strategies to build a unique Korean hot dog brand, which no one can easily copy.
Right, looks like
This
it takes
sounds
a
a little
combination of
difficult.
more than just flavors there. It takes a lot of strategizing as well. And well, Kyle, what do you think it is about Korean food that appeals to a population as diverse as in Toronto?
Right. I would first say, like, rather than the specific gastronomical traits of Korean food having contributed to the popularity, but first I would have to say I believe, as many other witnesses do as well, that heightened awareness of Korean culture in general, I think it really appealed to folks first. For example, Korean series on Netflix, YouTube, etc., and many other platforms, and that seems to have opened the portal, sort of, to the world of Korean food. So just like Korean pop, it's always been good, it's been there, but it wasn't as much introduced. That said, gastronomically speaking, I would define the personality of Korean food as sweet, spicy, and tender, as I briefly mentioned before. That really is the personality and the charm of K-food, I guess, something very peculiar about Korean food. It's not just super spicy like Indian or Latin American food. No offense to Indians or Latin Americans, but your food is really, really hot and spicy. But Korean food, it can be also super spicy, but then it's also sweet and tender at the same time. That's really the charm of Korean food, I believe. Like Japanese food, sweet and tender like Japanese food. On top of that, contrary to popular belief in Korea among Koreans, there is a surprising number of people who can really do spicy. I would say some cultures are even more accustomed to stronger spices, so there's that. And to that, you can add the universally beloved sweetness, sweet and tender to that spiciness, and that's a perfect K-food that everyone is just destined to crave.
Sweet, spicy, and tender. I like it. It really
Sweet, spicy, and
sort
tender.
of defines the Korean spirit as well, really. And well, Christine, what's
Yes.
surprising about Myungrang hot dog with your product is that you are actually able to sell this product to Americans who arguably invented the hot dog. So what was it about Korean hot dogs or corn dogs that really widely appealed to US foodies?
Well, I think it stemmed from the curiosity of the K culture. We all know Korean drama, music, and the fashion are very popular all around the world, especially in the United States. People started embracing the Korean culture and started having interest on different aspects of Korean culture, including food. Like I mentioned before, the concept of corn dog is not so much different from battered sausage with a stick. We upgraded this traditional version of corn dog by adding variety of flavors using different rice-based chewy batter and cheeses. Hot dog decorated with diced potatoes and sweet potatoes with different seasoning and sauces, providing the option to choose to be more unique and personalized for the customer's taste preference. This differentiation from the traditional plain corn dog attracted people in the United States.
And which flavors would you say are the most popular? I mean, do preferences differ by region or demographics in the US?
I would say the cheese-based hot dogs with or without potatoes are the most popular menu in Myungrang hot dog. With the reasonable price, the customers can enjoy both cheese, sausage, crunch, potatoes at the same time from our hot dog. I don't believe there's any difference on preference by any region or demographics.
So yeah, a real Korean twist to the very widely loved snack foods such as hot dogs. And now, Kyle, before we finish this interview, as a travel blogger and foodie, what are some top K foods that you'd like to recommend for anyone visiting Canada?
Oh, I would be too nice in 3 days to really introduce everyone to the world of Korean food, but I just don't want to take too much of your time. Um, and I was really actually quite shocked to find that I forgot to mention Korean hot dog. Shame on me, but yeah, of course we have like different Korean brands, hot dog brands here, which is enjoying record high popularity here. And what I also wanted to recommend was Korean chicken, definitely. I have received a million testimonies of Korean chicken becoming their new staple, especially from a lot of Westerners. So yeah, like I said, it's basically hot and spicy, like your usual KFC or Popeyes, but it's not too salty, but rather on the sweeter side, and the meat is just delectably tender. I would say it's the epitome of sweet, spicy, and tender that I keep saying that no one can really resist. And also, lastly, if you feel like going more spicy, you would definitely try gamjatang, pork bone soup. It's also the epitome of Korean sweet, spicy, and tender. Intact pork meat with bones still attached to the meat. It's soaked in the reddish brown broth that's basically spicy but sweet as well. You can eat it with your hands, rib style, along with pieces of gakdugi, sliced radish kimchi, and thousands of other side dishes that come with any entree free of charge. So I would say definitely Korean hot dog, Korean chicken, and gamjatang.
Right, well, I think my mouth is watering just thinking about all this K-food, but yes, it's definitely sweet, spicy, tender. It's delicious. So, well, I'm afraid though this is where we're going to have to end the interview today. That was Kyle Yooshin Kim, resident of Toronto, and Christine Yacoub at Myungrang America joining us this morning. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.